And the thing with these social platforms is that they are social, which means you need to interact with people. On LinkedIn especially, the algorithm rewards you or pushes your post and your profile more when you also comment, DM, and connect. So all of those interactions, and I think beyond the algorithm itself, but you get to meet great people just by actually like engaging in comments. Yeah, I think this part is just as important as the post itself. I think the number one thing people really focus on with basically no reason is metrics and like vanity metrics like followers and likes. These numbers, they feel good, but they don't always move you toward your actual goals. And because, for example, if you are building a business, like having more followers, that's not going to get you paid. So you want conversions. If you want to be content creator, you want to collaborate with brands and get paid for that. Okay, then maybe you will need a solid base of followers, but you will also need high engagement rates and high number of impressions. So followers and likes, that's not everything.
I mean, like, imagine you have a following of 1,000 people, but nobody's engaged. But then you have a following of, let's say, 10 people, but all of these 10 people are fully engaged. They comment, they care, they want to know, they give you feedback. I don't know, they have ideas that could lead you to create even greater content. Like, I want to have that kind of community. Like, I hope one day I get to have that kind of community where I can like also fully dive in there and talk with people, maybe even meet people and connect with people. I think that's so beautiful. And not just, I mean, also if you're looking for clients and you're trying to sell something and people trust you and you are hopefully someone to trust, and maybe you want to promote it like a product that you do really believe in. I think that's great. I mean, I have found some products through people who I really trusted and it's been amazing. So, obviously that can be great. But also if you're not selling anything, just to have a community and you can like connect with people and, maybe you help someone with something that you say might change someone's day. I think that's very powerful. And I think it's sometimes missing nowadays.
You need to have authority. And authority comes from knowledge. I don't think it's that way. Actually, I think authority comes from being honest and being authentic. And when you share real challenges, real struggles, but most of it, how you're figuring things out, what your thought process is behind those challenges, that builds trust way faster than pretending that you're an expert and you know everything. Because in the end, we're all humans. We don't know everything and we are always learning. So the more you can lean into that, the more relatable you will be for your target audience or people that are following you. Especially bigger companies, right now they process applications and they vet applicants using AI. And that's why, again, I think like doubling down on networking and really like having people who support you, who want to advocate for you is very important, because sometimes those connections can get you like in front of the actual hiring manager instead of you having to apply and wait for the bot to tell you if you are good for this job or not.
Welcome back, guys, to the Kotodama Podcast. I have with me here today Gina Sapién. She is the founder of The Remote Marketer. She has coached many, many clients across many different countries. She helps marketers and creatives turn their skills into powerful stories that hiring managers and audiences actually want to buy. I need this today. And she is a growth marketer. She's a content strategist. She also focuses specifically on fully remote opportunities. Welcome to the show, Gina.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. I'm so honored. I love it. I'm still a small podcast. I'm still a small content creator, so it always means a lot to me, the people that come on here and who kind of have a leap of faith and still want to work with me, basically, or come on here and share themselves with me. I think that's speaks to your kindness, so I'm really excited.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I think like we all start somewhere, and as I always say, it's worse that you never start than you start small. So yeah, great job. Really excited.
Thank you so much. So let's jump right in. My first question for you is, you help people to rebrand and land remote careers. So when did you know that this was your calling?
Yeah, actually, that was at my last full-time role. I was working remotely as a marketing manager for Arc.dev, an HR tech startup. And in this industry, I saw firsthand how quickly the remote market had changed. The demand for remote jobs just like shot up almost overnight. after the pandemic. And for me personally, remote work had changed my life already. I am from Mexico, but I'm living in Taiwan. I've been there for 7 years. And the fact of being able to work remotely gave me the freedom to, like, first of all, I don't have to commute, wasting time in traffic. But also, I could see my family whenever I needed. So I used to travel like probably once or twice a year to Mexico. And whenever I go there, I stay like, I don't know, 1 or 2 months. So that was the life I really wanted to have. And I think like, as I shared before, like after the pandemic, a lot more people want remote jobs, but then either companies are calling RTOs or they just decide that on-site is the best way to build culture. So there are a lot less opportunities. And then there is myself. I have all this knowledge in HR tech, how hiring works. And I just felt like I was keeping something to myself. So that's when I knew I really wanted to help others, like get there too, have the lives they deserve. And I think everyone deserves to have the lives they want and to work wherever and whenever they are at their best.
What do you mean there when you say you were keeping some things? Like, do you mean you couldn't fully use all of your skills?
It was more like I knew how the remote market works and what are the skills that people need to have, or um how should they communicate their skills when they apply to jobs so that they have a lot more chances to stand out. So, because I think right now most people think like, I will apply to job boards and that's it. That's the only way. But because the market is a lot more competitive, like applying, I think is the less effective way to actually land a remote job. Like you actually need to build your network. And something that is so obvious to me, but actually it's not obvious for a lot of people. So those are like the tactics or strategies that I feel like, oh, I have all this knowledge, but a lot of people don't. Like they should. And I want to share that with them.
Yes, I mean, you mentioned networking there. That's something I'm lately doing. And
Mm,
just also for fun, but also obviously for
yeah,
this podcast. And so it's been like one of the most rewarding things that I feel like nobody teaches you. Like networking is, I mean, I know people talk about networking, and when I say this, I sound like one of those like finance bros. Okay, like this is not the vibe. It's just like at the end of the day, if someone doesn't even know you're there, how are they supposed to help you, right? So I feel like,
exactly.
yeah, I feel like it's such a community out there of people who are willing to collaborate. That's the word. So yeah, I love networking. And so would you say it's like one of the most important skills as well to have?
I would say yes, but not networking in the way like, because sometimes people think like, oh, I'm just going to send a DM to this person and expect them to like send a referral or just do things for them, but actually like build relationships. And that's a lot harder than it looks like because it's not immediate. It takes time, but it's the most effective. So I would say the more you can provide value to people that you think probably they are your key target or they are interesting people. So the more you can give, then you are setting up the ground to take from them once there's something you need. Because I think like in every relationship, it's like a two-way street. Like you give and you take, but people are more receptive to giving once they have been given. So that's what you have to do.
Literally, I mean, creating value is everything, I think, in business and also even in your personal relationships, as you said, right? I mean, my value professionally and personally, some person might see it and it might be an absolute great fit, right? And then another person might not see it at all. It might not be the fit for for them. So I think that's a really important thing, and I guess also that a lot of founders that I talk to are talking about. And can you tell me about a time where you had to
Mm,
rebrand yourself and your identity? Maybe something where you failed, or yeah, what you kind of learned from
mm.
that experience.
Yeah. So I think identity as a whole is something that keeps evolving. And I think for me as an expat, and probably you will feel identified with this too, but at some point I feel like I'm no longer fully Mexican. Like when I go to Mexico, sometimes I feel like I don't entirely fit in. And even my friends tell me like, oh, you've forgotten how it is to like do all these things. But then I'm in Taiwan and like, just like by the way I look, like I don't look Asian. So that's like something I cannot fix. My Chinese, it's okay, but I have a very strong accent. So I would never fit as a Taiwanese either. So it's kind of weird because you are never like fully Mexican again. You're never fully Taiwanese again. And at first, I felt like that was my weakness. That I don't know, like I felt less when comparing with others because I didn't have that sense of belonging. But I think like probably this was the first few years I was here, but over time I realized that messy middle or that in betweenness is actually my strength because it's what makes me different. And I think once I started sharing that, and even on LinkedIn, like my story is something that people resonate with, especially other expats or people that work remotely, digital nomads. And that piece of your story is what sells and that what makes you interesting. So the fact of seeing how powerful that was, instead of feeling bad about it, it's something like right now I actually embrace and I feel very proud of that. So yeah, I think like what I thought that was holding me back actually connected me more to people. And that's how I feel in terms of identity now. Like I'm an expat and that's a great thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I'm a child of immigrant parents and was born and raised in Germany from Turkish parents, my viewers might know. But I have always dealt with this identity crisis in my whole life until like I was a young adult and I realized
Hmm.
I will never be fully German. I will never be fully Turkish even, right? But who am I as a
Yeah.
person? Like what are my values? What do I believe in? The country that most fits me is Japan in my opinion. So for me, when I'm here, obviously I'm not Japanese, but I'm kind of like
Mm.
comfortable now in that. I'm comfortable in my ambiguous identity. And by the way, I think that's the future anyways. People like you are like a Mexican in Taiwan, like that is so interesting. That's so different. That's so unique. And as you said, like
Yeah.
sometimes, I think it can be such a delicate topic, like especially with discrimination going on and all these things, right? To
Mm.
kind of like stand and be confident in yourself and be like, no, like this is who I am. Like, even if, and that's the thing, right? Even if you're in a country and there's always going to be people who don't agree with you, who will not accept you. But I think there's always also going to be people who do and who do see your value, right? Who do appreciate exactly that. So I think that's such an important connection there that you made. And I mean, I resonate with your story. So,
Yeah, I imagine you would. And I think like for example, when I'm on LinkedIn and I'm sharing this part of me, I see a lot of comments of people that probably feel the same way, but they are still like in the phase where they don't feel confident about who they are. Like as you say, probably like overseas people or sons and daughters of immigrants. And I think like wow, like it's already so powerful. Like probably you know how to speak two languages or maybe more. You have this broader view of the world. And right now, as you say, like that's the future. If you want like a great career, and I'm not saying working for a company, I'm saying like either you want to be a solopreneur, like the world is so connected that the more you have this global view, the better chances you will have of succeeding. So yeah, I think that's very powerful.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's something that Japan also still has to learn, kind of. Um, but yeah, when we talk about marketing, for example, I mean, I need to learn from you about this. I want to ask you this, but, a lot of people say to just post a lot in the beginning and to just kind of like
Mm.
quantity is more than quality sometimes. And, but the problem is I feel like there's so much content, there's so much noise online. So what are the three things that you believe most people get wrong when they're trying to become visible?
Yeah, first of all, I think just post is like kind of the biggest lie in LinkedIn or really any social media because it's not as easy as people make it to be. First, I think the number one thing people really focus on with basically no reason is metrics and like vanity metrics like followers and likes. these numbers, they feel good, but they don't always move you toward your actual goals. And because, for example, if you are building a business, like having more followers, that's not going to get you paid. So you want conversions. But probably if you want to be content creator, you want to collaborate with brands and get paid for that, okay, then maybe you will need a solid base of followers, but you will also need high engagement rates and high number of impressions. So followers and likes, that's not everything. And second, I would say a lot of posts don't really say anything new. And that's something I see a lot, especially with people that are starting out and are trying to figure out what their voice is or what the content pillars are. And I would say that this is totally okay if you are like first month or 2 months of creating content. But actually, as you grow, like people who stand out usually have a very strong point of view or a personal story that makes their content unique. Like we were saying, this part of like maybe being an expat, living in so many countries, speaking different languages, that's already something powerful that gives you like a competitive edge. And I think the third thing, it's like people think posting is enough, but actually never engage. And the thing with these social platforms is that they are social, which means you need to interact with people. And on LinkedIn especially, the algorithm rewards you or pushes your post and your profile more when you also comment, DM, and connect. So all of those interactions, and I think beyond the algorithm itself, but you get to meet great people just by actually like engaging in comments. So yeah, I think this part is just as important as the post itself. So yeah, I think this would be the 3 fundamental things that people really get confused about.
Yes, that's such good advice. I mean, I'm still trying to find my voice, and it's kind of confusing sometimes to step out of, because most people, they have only ever worked under a corporation. So I think sometimes you kind of then are like, okay, this is the voice of the company I work for. For example, I used to do content creation for a company I used to work for, but that is completely different now than now. Then now I'm here and this is my own platform, this is my own voice. And I really value authenticity, for example, but it's still a bit scary because it's like, okay, can I now say what I really think? Is it okay to have an opinion on this? Like in my personal life, I can be very opinionated, right? I have my opinions. I have like views that might be controversial. The question then is, I think when you're still a small creator, is like, okay, wait, can I say that? Like, I don't want to hurt people or, whatever it is. Like people get offended, obviously, on different sides for different things. And so I think like finding your voice is so important, and like, as you said, also like to connect really with the audience, right? And something I wanted to say there, I mean, I read this thing before. I don't know, it was a story somewhere or something I watched many years ago, but it was I think it was about a girl who was very, very famous on Instagram. She had a lot of followers. I don't know what she did. Maybe she was a content creator or a model or something. But then she had like a meet and greet event and nobody came. And I think she had like millions or yeah, she had like so many followers. And then I was like, okay, wow, wait, like that means nothing tangible. That's why I think there's so many there's so many YouTube channels and creators out there who actually make money without even reaching the 1,000 subscribers, just because they have a strategy and just because they have something to tell and to sell that people think is valuable. So that's so important actually what you said there, because I think people, especially nowadays, when they think it's like quick fame and, oh yeah, I just want to get rich quick, I want to have followers quickly, I just want to, and followers equal income, but it's not like that, right? From my understanding, it's
Yeah, I think like there are so many ways to get followers quick. Like you can pay a platform to boost your account with bots, but in the end, like again, that doesn't mean anything if you don't have a clear goal. So probably I would also say like, why are you even doing this? Like, why are you creating content? And I think from there, from having what your North Star is or your goal, that's where all your strategy follows. But yeah, I think like for example, when I was just starting, I was like, oh my God, like I got to 1,000 followers and I was like so happy. And then I started to find the secret, you could say, of viral posts, just the posts that work for me. But I realized like I'm doing all these viral posts and I'm getting like hundreds of thousands of impressions, but no one is actually like buying what I'm offering. So I think in that moment I realized like I don't want to keep doing this type of posts, not because I don't think they are valuable, but because I don't think they are aligned and moving me closer to the place I want to be. So if you want to be strategic about what you're doing, because also creating content takes time. So I think um, you want to be making the best use of your time. So always do those activities that are aligned with that.
Love that advice so much, because even now that I have a small platform, I
Mm,
really love like connecting with people. I already had messages from people very thoughtful who resonated with what
mm,
I'm talking about and who really saw me and who I am. And that meant so much for me. And I think
yeah.
for me, it's obviously authenticity, and it's also like sharing this. Like I love giving people a platform. I love listening to all sides of the spectrum. Literally, like I don't mind if it's two people who have the complete opposite opinion. I'm willing to
Mm-hmm.
listen. I'm willing to give them a platform. And that's something I want to do more, because I really think that the world actually needs more understanding and they need more unity. Like we need more unity as humanity.
Mm,
Like I have like a bigger mission there, but I'm still in the very, very beginning. And so I'm also very interested in all kinds of topics. So I figured, let me just do what I really believe in, like what I really am interested in. Otherwise, I can't keep going, right? If it's not something I enjoy. Um, so
yeah, of course.
yeah, so I want to ask you about like fully remote careers. Okay, like what are your
Sure. I
thoughts?
love that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you do this for, this is how you make a living. So I assume you really believe in fully remote careers. But what are your thoughts on it? I mean, do you feel like the world is changing, um, and going more and more in this like fully remote direction?
Yeah. I mean, I think like do not only do this for a living, but have also lived this myself. And as I mentioned before, like working remotely was really life changing for me as an expat living in Taiwan. But I mean, working remotely for 6 years pretty much, and I think I've seen how much the market has changed since then. And I think there's definitely like a pre-pandemic and after pandemic era, where during the pandemic there were so many remote roles and so many people wanted these roles. But then after that, there's a lot less opportunities and a lot more people competing for them. But the thing is, I don't think remote work is for everyone. A lot of people still imagine that remote is just like, I'm going to be working in the beach, working whenever I want, or probably going to a coffee shop and seldom reviewing my messages. They see the lifestyle more than the effort that it actually takes. So, actually, working remotely, I think you need someone with a very specific skill set, like someone who is self disciplined, focused, that can work autonomously, someone that is a great communicator because everything happens online. And truth is, not everyone is strong at these different skills that make you competitive in the remote work market. So now that there is less remote jobs available, of course, just the top talent, the ones that are really, really equipped to work remotely, and the ones that are vocal about this, as you were saying before, like if you don't put yourself out there, it's like you're a heathen. So you need to be like continuously talking about these skills that make you successful in remote work, probably like on your LinkedIn, sharing like case studies, just stuff that can tell employers, I know how to work remotely. I've done it before and I can do it once and once and once again. So yeah, I think like this shift from remote roles for everyone, doesn't matter how good you are, to very like small number of roles for only highly skilled people. It's I think it's very, very tangible. And all of these things happen like what, 3 years from now. So I think the market it's definitely like changing so fast. You need to like keep up with it.
Yeah. Do you feel like in Asia as well? Because I feel like sometimes Japan after COVID has been gone the complete opposite direction now, and they're all like back to office again, and they believe being in the office gives you more efficiency. I feel like I'm someone, I enjoy both actually. Like I do enjoy being in the office, but I also enjoy sometimes working from home. Just because I like talking with people in person. I do enjoy that. But at the same time, I think flexibility is something that's missing in a lot of companies, is giving people a choice, and listening to them, why this specific way of working works for them. Maybe someone has a child, right? And they would like to spend a bit more time at home. I mean, I think these things are so important to also make people happier, right? And so I feel like when people are happier, they're better employees, Like, I mean, that's my logic behind that. And I mean, wouldn't you stay more loyal to a corporation that respects you and your specific way of working, right? I mean, I don't know, that's my thoughts there. But when we talk about like fully remote careers, so my next question would be like, what are the biggest misconceptions? I mean, you talked a little bit about like people are like, oh yeah, I'm just going to sit at the beach and I'm going to work on my own terms completely.
Yeah.
Is it really as easy and as free as people make it out to be?
It is not. I would say it's not. And I think you mentioned something important, like there's also a big shift from remote work for the sake of working remotely. But then I think right now it's not just about like telling people you work in the office or you work remotely. It's not like one or the other. It's like working wherever you are at your best. And anyways, I think like it's not as easy as it seems, but not not because of the skills completely, but there's also a practical side as well. Like again, people think they can travel around everywhere and it's like so easy, but there are also practical issues. And I see this when I'm posting, for example, open remote roles, that they are only like remote in the US or remote in Europe, like more geographically limited roles. I think right now there's a lot of tools that companies can use to hire globally, like the EORs, employer of record. But truth is, they also require investment. They require certain infrastructure that not every company is willing to have or ready to have. So I think people, again, like sometimes they think it's just as easy as, I have a remote job, I'm going to go everywhere. But you need to think about, where are you going to pay your taxes? Do you need a visa or not? You need to think about regulations. And honestly, that's so boring. I think that's boring. But you need to think about that because you don't want to go back to your own country one day and be like, oh, you have a $1 million US fine because you didn't pay your taxes. So I think you need to think about all of these like boring stuff too before being like fully on the beach and just worrying about nothing.
I mean, yeah, but I want to know that actually I'm personally interested right now. Like, how does that work? Like, if a company, let's say a company is based in, let's say they're based in Germany, but they hire fully remote globally. How does that work with the taxes for each employee? Let's say one employee lives in Japan, one employee lives in Taiwan, one employee lives in France. How would that work? And also, how would that work? I mean, you don't have to go too much into detail, but just so people understand, because I don't know, but I'm sure there must be so many rules and regulations under which, for example, labor laws, do people then work? And also, what's happening if we have to be synced, if we have to sit in a meeting? And for me, it's night time, 2 a.m., but for you, it might be, I don't know what, how does that work?
Yeah, of course. So there are two parts to that question. For it's like the legal part. And as I mentioned, there are currently different companies that are called employer of record. That, for example, your company based in Germany can hire or pay this employer of record to hire other people in other countries directly under their own entity. So what employer of record does is that they set up local entities in every country. Local entities are not like offices themselves, but they have an address. They have legally an office set up in each country so that each employee is hired under that entity, under that country, under their labor laws. So for example, if, I don't know, in Taiwan, Chinese New Year, that's an official holiday, then you need to follow that specific holiday. Even your colleague in the US is not off, and the colleague in the US will be off in Christmas because that's an official holiday, just as an example. Then you also have access to every benefit in your own country. You are not working under the German law, for example, if that's your headquarter company. And I think when it comes to, for example, if you have to sync with your team, I think that's already like we're talking about the infrastructure and how the company has built their processes, their foundations for remote work. I've seen companies that even though they hire remotely, but like globally, they will ask you to overlap in probably EST hours. So even though I am in Taiwan and that's like 9 p.m. for me, but if I agree to go into that company, I'm going to be working EST hours. And there is like the fully remote async type of companies that you don't need to overlap for anything. You do your work whenever you want. But I think like that's not something that can legally be controlled. It's more about how the company wants to operate.
Yeah, and that kind of is the I forgot what it's called. I think it's a free time. I think some companies are doing it whether they're remote or not. There's like this free time kind of companies who they don't care how many hours you work, just basically get the work done. But then I'm also like, I mean, I love that from a freedom and flexibility point of view, because I'm very much concerned about people's well-being all the time. Like, I think people have to be happier and more, we are in a mental health crisis. So much is going on in the world. Okay. We have war everywhere. It's a mess.
Yeah.
I just want people to be happier and more fulfilled so we can all be kinder towards each other because we have more to give, right? Like that's my whole worldview revolves around this. And I'm thinking like, so, how do you make that work? In a world like this, could I actually, like, let's say I would work for an American company and they would want me to work on their hours. They don't care that I'm in Japan, but I would have to work for their hours. Well, that would be like, let's say I would have to work every night, right? From 10 p.m. to, I don't know, let's say that's a thing. That's not really doable. I at the same time I understand it's hard to track sometimes. And what if people do overtime? There's legal requirements for that kind of stuff too, right? So if you have complete free time, what does that mean for people who work too much? And I mean, it's just, I think it's quite complicated.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it is. It really is. But I think like it comes down to culture, like how the company wants to like run, and also transparency. Because I think if, for example, in a job description, it's very clear that you need to work EST hours, then I think you need to make the decision. If you are moving forward, you know what you're getting into. So, because for example, for me, in my previous job, my team was globally distributed, and most of the meetings I had with team in Latin America or the US, like I had to either wake up like at 7 a.m. or like, I don't know, have the meetings at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. But those are the times where I'm actually more awake. So it works well for me, and I already know what I was getting into. So I think in that case, it's also like, how do you work at your best? Like, it's a lot of self-knowledge so that like, probably I can only have meetings in the morning or I can only have meetings in the evening. And if I'm going to apply to that job, I know this is something I'm agreeing to and I can do well. But I think I agree in the point where remote work is about getting things done. And sometimes if you're a high achiever, you just want to like do your best. And sometimes you can spend a lot more time working than you're actually like living your own life. So I think like in this case, again, it's a lot of having self-awareness and prioritizing what matters the most to you. And in the end, if you are not in good health, it's very hard for you to work and to perform at your best. But like that's kind of easy to say in practice, but I have myself lived that in the way that I'm working so much that even my health is like really taking a toll. And you don't want to get there, but you should know this is like my hard stop. And if my company is like, it's a good employer, they care about my well-being, they will also not ask a lot more from me that I can actually give. So It's kind of hard.
It is hard. And it's such an important thing that you touched on there is the self-awareness and like self-control and understanding your own limits, your own boundaries, how much you can work, even if you want to work more because you're a workaholic, let's say, and you really get like focused on something to kind of force yourself on them. No, let me take a break, or, or people who actually cannot focus much, like I think this lifestyle is not for everyone. And, it's also kind of sad, I think. I wish everyone could have much more freedom in life in regards to everything, literally. But I think the reality is we are programmed and trained in a school system to be there at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., whatever, and then go back home at whatever time. And then, you eat and then you go to bed and then you do the same thing the next day. And then that kind of continues your whole life through university. I mean, university is a little bit more flexible, but same thing. You have to be there for class, specific time. The professor is there. You have the tests, the way that we are being tested throughout our whole educational system. And then kind of you are at work and now you're being evaluated for your work. And now you have a manager and your manager has a manager and that manager has a manager. It's like everything is a set system. And I think somehow this fully remote thing is really fascinating to me in the way that I think it really completely shifts what the systems that we've been raised in. And I'm just fascinated by this. And I think it's not for everyone. It's kind of like my partner, for example, he's a freelancer. Like, okay, that's a lot of freedom, right? Like he has a lot of freedom, but what's the downside? So what's the risk there? The risk is he has to find his clients. He has to do his taxes. He has everything that a corporation normally does for you. Now you have to do yourself. And so is that for everyone? No. Do I wish we would live in a world where everybody would just be like, whatever is best for them. And like, but I think I think it's absolutely fascinating conversation here. And I think it's not just a professional thing. I think it always bleeds into your personal life and what kind of life do you want to live, right? I mean, I'm just so interested in this. I'm rambling on. But I wanted to ask you, what's the biggest mistake that you have made in your own brand and content journey? And how did you recover from that?
Well, I think we touched on this one a little bit, but definitely like when I was starting out, I just wanted more followers. And I think like the reason, like actually there's no reason why, but I think when I started posting, I didn't have a clear goal. So I was just like testing, experimenting, see what can happen. And again, like I had posts going viral, that felt great, but then I realized, why am I doing this? Like, I'm spending extra time from my full-time job doing this thing. And the reason why I started experimenting on LinkedIn is because it was a very important marketing channel for my company as in revenue driver. So I was like, if I'm like ghostwriting for all these people, why can't I just do it for myself? And as I realized, I want to help people to land remote jobs through career coaching. It was like, okay, I'm doing all this work, writing content, posting, but it's not bringing any leads, any revenue. I'm not really talking to other people. So that's where my approach shifted from I'm just going to do what gives me followers to posts that felt authentic to me and leaning onto the DMs, the real conversations. If you only use LinkedIn natively, I think, for example, their inbox system, it's like really, really terrible to follow up with people, especially if you receive a lot of messages. So also invested in infrastructure to help me follow up with these people. So just like shifting from followers to relationships, I think that was the point where my growth actually like took off a lot faster.
Love that. I mean, I could feel that, with you, because obviously you have a lot of followers and I just kind of sent you a message randomly kind of. I mean, I had a mission. Obviously, I wanted you here on and I got it. I got you here. Yes, I did it. But it's like, I could imagine you have probably so many messages and you are still so kind and so quick in your response. And I think that's a professional. Not everyone can do that, LinkedIn is a whole different conversation. I mean, I think it's such an underrated platform. I really enjoy LinkedIn. It could obviously improve. There's some things on the platform that I feel
as any platform,
yeah. But okay, so let's go to this question. What branding advice do you hate that everybody says is amazing?
I think something I see a lot of LinkedIn gurus saying, it's like, get a niche, focus on one single thing, or brand yourself as an expert. You need to have authority, and authority comes from knowledge. I don't think it's that way. Actually, I think authority comes from being honest and being authentic. And when you share real challenges, real struggles, but most of it, how you're figuring things out, what your thought process is behind those challenges, that builds trust way faster than pretending that you're an expert and you know everything. Because in the end, we're all humans, we don't know everything, and we are always learning. So the more you can lean into that, the more relatable you will be for your target audience or people that are following you.
I mean, you nailed that, because I have such an issue with that find a niche thing, because like I'm not just one thing. Like that's been my whole life. I mean, on this podcast even, I have guests who are spiritual leaders, and then I have guests who are business leaders, and then I have guests who, I don't know, are artists, and like I just invite people that I'm interested in. And I'm allowed to have multiple different interests, and I'm allowed to express that. And people who find that, who maybe tune in with one conversation might not tune in with another, but why is that necessarily bad? I mean, you know, some of the most successful podcasts out there are not in one box, right? They have people on from all different kinds of walks of life, and you still can have a fascination or like a passion for conversation and learning from that. And maybe, I don't know, like for example, I might follow someone who, because I follow them because maybe they talk with scientists and I'm interested in science. But then another episode, they have like an athlete on. I'm not personally maybe interested in in athletes, but then I find out because of that person that I'm following and watching their content that, oh my God, I learned valuable advice from this athlete interview podcast that I never knew like would be fitting for me or interesting for me. So yes, that's something I'm just like, I get it. I get that. Of course, if you have a specific niche, people know exactly who you are and what you represent. But I think it can be limiting, right?
Yeah, because I think like as humans, we're just so complex. And you said it right. Like we're not just one thing. We're a sum of different experiences, different things that we know. And of course, you want to be known for one thing, but you don't want that to be your whole identity. So that's why I think the more you can explore those interests and talk about all of those things, you can also start seeing what feels more natural, more authentic, and leaning more towards one direction. But that doesn't mean you have to do always one single thing. Like, it's not possible. It's not relatable either.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's amazing advice. And just to touch on what you said earlier about the community aspect as well, more than like just followers, to have people who are engaged. I mean, like imagine you have a following of 1,000 people, but nobody's engaged. But then you have a following of, let's say 10 people, but all of these 10 people are fully engaged. They comment, they care, they want to know, they give you feedback. I don't know, they have ideas that could lead you to create even greater content. Like I want to have that kind of community. Like I hope one day I get to have that kind of community where I can like also fully dive in there and talk with people, maybe even meet people and connect with people. I think that's so beautiful. And not just, I mean, also if you're looking for clients and you're trying to sell something and people trust you and you are hopefully someone to trust, and, and maybe you want to promote it, like a product that you do really believe in. I think that's great. I mean, I have found some products through people who I really trusted and it's been amazing. So, obviously that can be great. But also if you're not selling anything, just to have a community and you can like connect with people and, maybe you help someone with something that you say might change someone's day. I think that's very powerful. And I think it's sometimes missing nowadays. So yeah. Okay, my next question is, if someone started from zero, okay, they have no platform, no audience, kind of like me right now, what are the first 3 steps that you would recommend in their branding and content strategy?
Yeah, I think like the first step that it's something you probably don't think about because it's that strategic and boring part. It's like, what is your goal? Because as I mentioned before, you asked me about what's the first mistake I made or the biggest mistake I made. And I think it came down to not having a clear why. Are you trying to land a new job? Do you want to attract clients? Do you want to grow your visibility? And having that clarity of what you want to achieve with your content, that shapes everything that you do. So, number one, know why you're doing this. Then I think step two, it would be know who your audience is. Like, if you know what you want to achieve, then who are you talking to? Because if you try to talk to everyone, you will end up talking to no one. So again, that doesn't mean you have to like be very specific about one single type of person, but you can like find commonalities between different groups of people. So for example, I think this kind of sounds complicated. So for me, it's like, okay, I'm interested in marketing. I'm interested in helping people land remote jobs in marketing. So my audience would be job seekers or probably people who are already in a certain job, probably heads of marketing, early stage founders that I can help with marketing. So even though these audiences are different because a founder is very different from a job seeker, but they have overlap that helps me get closer to my goal, which is either getting new clients or either if it's job seekers or founders. So yeah, that would be step two. And I think the number three, we are talking about what am I going to post? What should I even say? And that comes down to content pillars. And as I'm coaching job seekers to start like trying to post more and to just put themselves out there, and they ask me like, I don't know what to talk about. I'm like, what are those 3 or 4 or 5 content pillars or topics that feel closer to what your value proposition is or what you want to be known for? And content pillars can be from marketing to career growth to remote work. So just like a mix of different things that add up to who you are. And then you start creating content around those. So once you build this foundation, like your goal, your audience, and your content pillars, and all of this is actually strategy. But once you have all that super, super clear, you can, from refining your visuals, do your branding, and start posting with a certain narrative in mind. So strategy is everything. So I would focus on those three.
Yes, I mean, that's fascinating because it means to be able to market yourself out there, even if you're not a marketer, okay, but you want to have a voice. It kind of means, from what I hear from you, that you have to know yourself very well. You have to be authentic. You have to kind of sit with yourself and be like, why do I do this? What am I trying to?
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite deep, self-reflective work, right?
And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do because people just want to see results faster and do actions that they think have the direct impact. And that's not necessarily wrong, but if you're doing things for the sake of doing them, then you're going to get nowhere. So that's why like sitting down with yourself and thinking about all these things, it will actually save you a lot of time.
I mean, I love it. I love how you always tie it to kind of like your personal story, because I think the reason, right, if I think about why I listen to voices that I listen to, why I tune in with specific podcasters, why I watch specific people, is because I like them. I kind of enjoy their personality. I like them for who they are, even if I might not necessarily... Sometimes I might not necessarily even like agree with a lot of what they're saying, but I enjoy them as a person. So it's kind of like all about, I guess, being yourself and knowing who you are so you can convey that to the people who are listening. And yeah, so you're not just chasing empty like what's it called, like gratification from social media and followers, and and yeah, it's absolutely, it's a big topic. And my next question would be like, what formats, like for example, like LinkedIn posts, newsletters, short videos, Instagram posts, etc., all these things that exist out there, have you seen that get the most unexpected traction?
Yeah. So again, I think it depends on who your audience is and what is your goal. because I think different channels are created for different things or different platforms. Like, for example, LinkedIn has been really amazing for me when it comes to selling like high ticket services like coaching programs, because my goal is growing my business, right? But then Instagram can work really well for awareness, for smaller offers, for digital products. So, like, in the end, these are all platforms that don't belong to you, like LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads, TikTok. You don't own that platform. And I think here's the biggest problem for content creators, that you need to be owning your audience. So if you're always like leaving it to other platform, one day, like, like TikTok, probably in the US, I think a few months ago, it was about to shut down. For those creators that had made their fortune from TikTok, they were like freaking out. So maybe LinkedIn next month is going to do the same. And if you're putting your eggs in one basket, ultimately, probably if you already built a business from that, you're going to get out with nothing. So there is advice I've heard, and I'm personally building that out myself, is own your audience and move them into an email list, which means a newsletter. Because again, like, I think newsletter is something that you can control a little bit more. And let's say LinkedIn, you lost your followers, then you can always reach out to them through that email list that you've been building. So again, like, I think it also depends on your own platform, because some people like swear by videos and they are creating a lot of video content also on LinkedIn. But for me, video has never worked. I know it works for a lot of people, but for me, I've tried it several times. It doesn't work. So what I do is long form post, add a selfie, and they always work really well. So I think like there's not a one size fits all type of answer. I think it's also like work in progress. You need to do this thing a lot of times, try different channels, try different formats everywhere. See the patterns, see what works and doesn't, like sit with your analytics, and then start doubling down on that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. I think from my own research, okay, for my own channel, for my own podcast, what I've come across is a lot of people say this, that the newsletter is the way to go.
Yeah.
And I always find that surprising a little bit, because I'm like, really? Are people really opening and reading these newsletters? Because I always think, when I think about newsletters, I first think about like spam. People are sending too many. But I can imagine, if you're doing it in a way that's not spammy, if you're doing it in a way that creates some form of value, maybe something that you normally don't. Let's say I would have a newsletter where I don't necessarily just repeat the same thing I talked about, but maybe something that they normally cannot see, let's say behind the scenes. Like, this is something I thought about before. I'm like, okay, I actually want to do that. Like, I want to have my own newsletter thing as well, just to connect again in a different way, and to get these people to also kind of be, as you said, not be only rely on YouTube, or to not only rely on, whatever it is, other platforms that you're using. But yeah, so do you think you can do that even if you don't sell a product, like me? Like people who are content creators, but they don't necessarily sell anything. Do you think it still makes sense to have a newsletter?
I do think so. Like, even though you are not selling something, but if you, like, just by creating content, even though this is a podcast, you are showing up on LinkedIn, you're already a content creator. So the principles are still the same. Like, you want to connect closer to your audience and own them in a way that another platform cannot help you. The thing is, like, what's the content? Like, what are you sharing with them? So I think, like, if you have a value proposition, not necessarily a product, it can be sharing cool stories from people around the world, for example. That's already something strong for people that are interested in that.
Yeah. I have to sit on this and think about what I'm going to do there. Because again, I think it's a way to kind of like nurture your own community as well, right? Like, because people are interested in, in you, I guess. So yeah, I'm always thinking about that. So thank you for that. One more question about authenticity. So do you think, for me, authenticity is one of my highest values in life. I always try to be as authentic as I can be. I'm still learning how to do that on a platform. But do you think that nowadays authenticity, because what I'm asking is kind of like when you look at employers, right? Corporations, I always say it's a big theatrical, it's like a show that people put on. When you go to an interview, you're not fully yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest flaws in that system is that people are not fully themselves. And so they end up mismatched in a position that they don't actually enjoy, in a job that they don't actually want to do. And so how do you think like authenticity plays into this? Like when you look at people who are looking for remote positions, like they're looking for a job, how can they stay authentic while also pleasing, I guess, the employer? Like, how do you deal with that? How do you coach people into?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, it's a hard question, but I think that to me, the definition of being authentic and being genuine is having a story that is unique to yourself. It's your narrative. It's like the storytelling part of yourself. Like you have your skills, like the hard skills, the things you know how to do, but then there is a story. And once you put those two parts together, that's how you sell yourself. So, for example, if you think about the process, the job search process, that's something that you fully own and fully control, like your resume, your LinkedIn, what you're talking about. That's something you can easily control. But then you come to the interview and you want them to like you, but in the end, you also want to like them. So I think a lot of job seekers often come with the idea of like, oh, they are evaluating me, when actually you should be evaluating them as well. You may like or not like them, like the interviewers themselves and the company and the culture as you are approaching different conversations. So I think like when when I train people for interviews, it's more like teaching them frameworks so they know how to answer different questions without having to memorize specific answers. And for example, like one of the first questions you're almost always going to be asked is like, tell me about yourself. And this is basically where that story, that narrative comes in. So, for example, if they ask you like, sometimes they will ask you, tell me about a time when you did this specific thing. Probably in that question, you're not going to say like, oh, I am from Mexico, but I come in Taiwan. I mean, I'm not going to say that. It's more like hard skills. But then you also showcase what your thought process is, how you collaborate with people, and all of these soft skills or behavioral type of questions that show you who you are just in a different way. So, yeah, I think it's not always like as easy as it seems, but in the end, and the bottom line is you are also evaluating them. So don't think you always need to be liked. Like, do you also want to work there? That's so important because, as you say, that's where the mismatch comes. And if you just want to take one job for the money, for the title, not because your values are aligned, then probably you will end up hating that job and leaving in 1 month. So again, it all ties back to self-awareness and self-knowledge, which is one of the hardest things to do.
Yes, and then kind of that ties to applying for jobs that you are actually interested in, not just applying randomly for 100 different types of jobs, right? Like quality over quantity, I guess. But I also understand that people are, sometimes a bit disheartened because I think the market seems to be difficult lately, and then everything is kind of automated through AI. So I think there are new challenges that people are, are faced, and so yeah, I do understand that as well. But what you said there is really valuable, and yeah, do you actually want to work there?
Exactly, and
Yeah.
definitely, I think especially bigger companies right now they process applications and they vet applicants using AI. And that's why, again, I think like doubling down on networking and really like having people who support you, who want to advocate for you is very important, because sometimes those connections can get you like in front of the actual hiring manager instead of you having to apply and wait for the bot to tell you if you are good for this job or not. So yeah, takes like a mindset shift as well from, as you say, something that the system has thought of for like so many years, which is like go to college, get good grades, apply to jobs, send your resumes. I mean, that's not how the market works anymore.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Gina. This was such an amazing conversation. I have a section now, a rapid fire section. So I am going to ask you questions and I want you to answer with maybe one word or shortly if you can. So my first question is one word that defines a powerful brand.
Authentic.
I love that. Yeah, I love it.
Very straightforward.
Yes, that is, as I said, that's one of my values. I love it. What's the biggest branding mistake you see every day?
Pursuing perfection instead of sharing your challenges.
Oh my God, again, it's authenticity, you know?
Yeah.
But that's the same thing,
it's
actually.
like what being human is. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. Perfectionism doesn't exist. Okay. What's the number one skill every marketer should master in 2025?
Okay, that would be using AI, but not like using random tools, more like knowing how to integrate those tools into your workflow and your strategy.
Oh my God, yes. I love that. I love AI, but also I have complicated feelings sometimes because I'm like, what are the downsides of it? But yeah, I love it. I use it every day. What is the most overrated social media platform?
Think TikTok. I believe it's great for awareness, but a lot of people overestimate how much it converts. So comes down to what your goal is, but unless your brand is built for viral short form, I don't think it's really the best channel.
Yes, I have heard that before. That it's actually hard to make money on TikTok, yeah. And valuable, I guess, long form audience is difficult on TikTok apparently.
Yeah.
And what is the most underrated social media platform?
Actually, I think Reddit. Reddit is like a very simple, and it can be more like a community forum. But actually, I've seen a lot of companies doubling down on marketing through Reddit because that's where people are like brutally honest and where communities are deeply engaged, like 10 times more than on LinkedIn or any other social platform. So if you really want to understand your audience and what other people think about you, your products, then go to Reddit. It's really a gold mine.
My goodness, I've never heard that before. And I am a Reddit user. And you're right, it's because people are anonymous there, right? They have like
Yeah.
no profile picture. It's a weird account name. And they're brutally honest, right? Like, I mean, everything that's why I love Reddit, though. I go there to read the raw stories of real people. And at the end, you never know if it's the truth, but I assume it is. And it's fascinating. But how do you do that then as a brand? Like, is it not then? Do you go there to see real feedback and kind of sneak on people's opinions on you? Or do you go there to address them directly? How does that work?
You could use it both ways. I think one of the things Reddit it's very against it's like promoting products directly. Like you can definitely sponsor posts and do ads, but they need to be like natural, like they seem they are actually from a person. So something I used to do back in my previous job, it's like engaging in different conversations from topics that are aligned with your product and comment in a way that looks natural, and then be like, hey, I tried this thing. The company was ARC. I tried ARC and it actually worked pretty well, but like I'm commenting as myself, but sharing still about my company. And actually that's something you don't have to pay for, but you need to show up like pretty much as you show up on LinkedIn, like be engaging every single time, because it's more community than about actually posting things. And you can like start conversations, continue conversations, always like at some point taking it back to what your product is.
Wow, that is sneaky. That's interesting.
It is.
Here I am reading, thinking it's like all, individuals. Meanwhile, companies already are on Reddit. Like, this is mind blowing to me. I know the promoted posts, but maybe I'm too sometimes I can be very, naive, I think. Like like I'm here sitting like, oh my God, it's everyone's, personal experience. Yeah. Interesting. I mean, that sounds, yeah, that's probably bigger in America as well, but yeah, it sounds very interesting. I've never heard that before. Thank you for that insight. But yeah, Gina, thank you so much for being my guest today. That was all for today that I wanted to ask you. And yeah, I really appreciate it, as I said, to have you on, because I think, again, not everyone would do that. I still have a small following. So yeah, I'm very, very grateful and honored that you were here, and your advice was just so knowledgeable. And I think I learned a lot today. I have to think more about my why after this conversation ends. And yeah, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me, Janim. It was very, very nice, and looking forward to see where you go from here.
Thank you. I'll try my best with your advice, hopefully.
Of course.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Kotodama Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this content, if there was anything here today that taught you something, or maybe you want to comment how you felt about it in the comment section, please do that. I actually read every comment because I'm still a small channel. I can still do that. So I would love to engage with you guys in the comment section. And also, please subscribe and share and like. That helps a lot with the algorithm. And thank you so much. Bye.